Great. Well, good morning, colleagues, and a very, very warm welcome to my special guest this morning, Dr. Tozama Ogunleye, and she gave me a tutorial on how to say her name, but I'm sure she will give it to us again just now, and Dr. Sudesh Sivarasu, the two co-chairs of the South African Young Academy of Science. It is such a pleasure to meet you in face-to-face. I've seen Sudesh previously on other webinars hosted by SAYAS. But colleagues, this month we are celebrating the extraordinary achievements of our young researchers during the month of celebrating Youth Month. Our youth of today are our leaders of tomorrow. And just looking at your specific CVs, you are already at your young researcher stage, such accomplished researchers. Tozama, for example, you've got her little biographic sketch in the flyer, is a project manager and senior lecturer at the Faculty of Applied and Computer Sciences at the Vaal University of Technology. And already her focus of research is on traditional medicine and traditional knowledge. Tozama, I must tell you that I have a passion for this particular subject. And after this session, I would love to engage with you on some issues that we would like to do at the ASAP side of things as well. And she is a recipient of numerous accolades and awards to date, including the 2011 DST Women in Science Award, the 2016 Mail and Guardian Top 200 Young South Africans Researchers Recognition, the 2018 National Youth Development Award for Academic Excellence, the 2018 Tech Women Fellowship from the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, which is a platform for emerging women leaders in STEMI, and the 2019 Inspiring 50 South Africa Award. Tozama, that's too many for you at this tender age, but this is why we want to hear from you. I'm not going to go through reading every single bit of your accolade, but I will also introduce Dr. Sudesh Sivarasu, and I don't know where this inventorship has come into your gene pool. Wow, you've already invented so many things. Sudesh is based in the Department of Human Biology at the University of Cape Town, and he does biomedical engineering, and is the director of Biomedical Engineering Research Center at UCT. He is a qualified electronics and instrumentation engineer with a master's and PhD biomedical engineering from Wits University in India. Wow, again, accolades like the Founded Chancellor's Award for Achievement in Innovation from the DST's Innovation Bridge Award and NSTF South 32, the T.W. Kambula Award for Emerging Researchers, in addition to about 16 other medical technology awards across 4 continents. Where do you kids come from these days? But anyway, we are very, very proud and honored to host you as the co-chairs of the 2022 Young Academy of South Africa grouping. And before I allow you to kind of present, this is a conversation. Tozama, just give us in a few sentences what being a scientist, particularly a female scientist, means to you.
Thank you, Prof. Himmler. It's such an honor to be invited to this series and coming in the capacity of an ESCO for SAYAS and representing SAYAS at large. For me, being a scientist I think it has to do with, I like what was said, and I think it's more of my motto now, what was said at the World Economic Forum in 2008, that passion for science is passion for a better future. So for me, that is my motto. So it's a matter of the skill, whether it's a skill set, whether it's an expertise, how can we integrate it to come up with the solutions that are relevant to our society?
That's wonderful. Thank you. And Sudesh, how did entrepreneurship and instrumentation and all of this come into your orbit?
First of all, thank you so much, Prof, for the introductions and the opportunity. We're really honored to be here at this platform, and thanks to Asif for hosting us. So, going back to your question, I think it's a mix of needs and seeing that needs have not been met, and seeing that solutions have not been created where there could be like a default solution, which is like. I would say science is common sense. If you apply common sense, science automatically flows. And that's where my field of science comes into play, where it is about common sense engineering, about creating solutions that could work. I can't create a sophisticated solution that would work in remote Africa where there's no power. So we need to use our common sense. So It's about applying ourselves to our environment and creating a solution and making it more sustainable. That's, to me, is science. And there's no better feeling than actually solving a problem. It gives you that enormous amount of energy to solve the next problem, but also to see that people actually benefit from your solutions.
Wonderful.
And it's kind of a round cycle.
Right.
It feeds
a balancing act
exactly
of a needs and supply and demand kind of scenario. Oh, wonderful. Anyway, I don't want to take up too much of your time, and I'd first like to invite Tozama to speak on what's the focus of SciAS and the voice of young scientists in South Africa. So over to you, Tozama, to give us your insights. And feel free, yes, you've got a presentation, but if you could keep it to between like 10 to 15 minutes, so we can have a little bit more of a discussion at the end. And welcome to all the participants who have joined us. Thank you so much for your support. And let's get on to this journey of our brilliant scientists, our young scholars, to lead us in discussion as we kick off the celebration of Youth Month. Over to you.
Thank you, Prof. Himla. I just want to confirm at this point if you can see my screen. I'm sharing my screen.
We are seeing a bit of your directory. Just select your presentation.
Okay, stop sharing.
It always happens during the test. Everything works.
Everything works, and when it's time to present, it's something else.
There we are.
Can you see it now? Perfect. Let me just start from the beginning. Okay, there we are. So my role for today is more to talk about the South African Young Academy of Science and what we are, who we are, and then towards the end, I will give practical examples of what we have achieved and what we are also planning to do and what we are doing from the regional point of view, the national point of view, the African point of view, and the impact also we had at the global level. But I must say, I'm not here alone. I'm here with my co-chair, which is Professor Sudesh. And we have an incredible team. Professor Tash, she's also a part of the participants, and she's at VETS. She's part of the ESCO. Prof. Kruger, who is at UP, he is part of the ESCO, and also Prof. Dustin, who is at UJ. So in total, we're 5, and myself, who I'm from the Valley University of Technology. So it's such an incredible team. And we do work with Kulani, our secretariat, and also with Dr. Melusi Twala, who is from the ASAF Strategic Management team. So for today, SciAS is the voice.
Sorry, Tozama. Yeah. You went back to the first slide, so now you're on the second slide.
Oh,
so
thank you.
Just to remind you to advance.
Oh, okay. SciAS is the voice of young scientists in South Africa. It's more of a platform that we use to influence collaboration, and a platform that we do contribute to the capacity development, whether it's in terms of mentorship, in terms of supervision, in terms of role modeling campaigns, and yearly
we are losing you.
We select 10 members on a term, and for this training, what I've just said.
Maybe kill your video to improve on the bandwidth, because we are losing some of your voice.
Sorry about that. I'm not sure. Okay, let me mute.
Now you've muted yourself. Just kill the video.
Okay, is that better?
Ah, there you go. Wonderful.
Oh, okay, great. Sorry about that. Technology sometimes. So as I was saying, so in terms of the strategic goals, we are more on to having a platform where we can influence policy, a platform where we can foster collaboration, a platform where we can contribute in terms of student supervision, in terms of mentorship, and a platform where we can collaborate, whether it's at multidisciplinary level or transdisciplinary level. So some of the mechanism or the channel that we use to achieve these goals, this has to do with encouraging our members and also the stakeholders and partners to publish in Science Magazine, to publish in Quest, to publish in the South African journals. And we do also have a number of workshops at the national level, and also participate at the global level and continental level. We also play a very crucial role in terms of strengthening links within the African continent. One of the example is when Lesotho, the Young Academy was formed, which was 2020, if I'm not mistaken, how SciAS members play a key role in assisting the formation. But another one that we are currently involved with in the continent is Zambia. Zambia, for a long time, they had the established academy, which is like ASAF in South Africa. But now what they want to form is more of the Young Academy. So we do play a key role in assisting the formation in the continental level. In terms of influencing policy, we are part of the membership of ASAF Standing Committee, so some of our members are playing a key role there. We also provide a space to deliberate and provide collective recommendation on national and global challenges. We do have workshops on policy engagement. We do have a number of workshops. I'm just going to give the practical examples at the end. And then on item number 3, in terms of the mechanism that we use, we do have science clubs, our members that are very involved in activities, such as also role modeling campaign. In that one, we partnered with the National Research Foundation, where we toured the country and we encourage students to enroll for science courses, and especially to take it up to the PhD level. And we also participate in the National Research Foundation SASTA, the National Science Week. We also participate in SciFest, Science and Society in Africa Symposium, and other activities that showcase science. And then in terms of the item number 4, or goal 4, promoting SciAS and its value in adding initiatives, we do have our website. We do have our blog. Please, if you didn't have an opportunity before to visit our blog, please, after this webinar, can you please just go and check what we are busy with and what we're working on. And also, I have already talked about linkages within the African academies and also at the global level. So what I'm doing now, I'm just giving practical example. One of the remarkable work that we've done so recently is the advisory group that is called SAGE, Scientific Advisory Group on Emergency. This group actually is led by Professor Jerome, who is at UKZN, And there are SciAS members that are playing key role in the steering committee, the likes of Gigen, the likes of Adeyemi, the likes of Pradeep, the likes of Mari, who was the former co-chair last year. So this is one of the articles that actually they wrote. It's a number of articles. It's a number. It's a great work. The reason I'm bringing this up is because it's such a remarkable work and how it emerged. Because it emerged during the COVID time, when uncertainty and confusion reigned. But SciAS managed to stand as a collective and work together with ASAF members, with the alumni, and the likes of Karadi, right? So that is Sage. There's still a number. I just selected this one, but there are a number of papers that they have written, even on food securities and other matters that affect our nation. Another example of the project that we did is the magazine that is called Because Science is Fun. This is a magazine that is available electronically. And what was being profiled there was more of the female scientists. For me, I became involved in this project before I graduated for PhD. At that level, I was not a SciAS member, but SciAS, they were looking for volunteers at the postgrad level as well. So I raised my hand. Another activity that we have as SciAS is what is called the Conference for Young Scientists. This is a conference that we normally have on a yearly basis. Here, it was in Pretoria, and it's such a great moment, not only to present your work, but also in terms of networking and also know who's who in the science space. It's a great platform as well. Another platform or another activity that we do when we tour the country, this was in Durban. So this was also a science event. It was called We're Working Together from Master to PhD level. Here, the reason I took this picture is because we had visited Eastern Cape in this one. Also, it was a SciAS project. What I liked more about this project was because we had visited a rural area. So I'm from a rural area, which is Bizana. So, for me, it hit home a lot when we saw the lady that is here, her name is Nosihle. And when you see how these students, they emerge and they enroll actually for courses that whether it's social science or natural science, it's always happy when you see the impact, not just the impact for that day, the relationship. We're still friends even on social media with some of them. Here we're in Bloemfontein, also a SciAS project with Puleng, in this picture, Prof. Puleng. That was way back when Dorothy was still part of SciAS as the secretariat. So I'm just showing the project, different project that we are doing. This one, we're working with ASAF, and it was last year where we were celebrating the Youth Month and looking at the role of the youth in terms of the SDGs. What is the role of the young people? And we also partnered. So the reason I'm showing this, as you can see, some of the work we do alone, but most of it we do in partnership. So this strategic partnership, because one thing that is for sure is that the challenges that we have are complex. So it's not a singular unit that will come up with the solutions. Hence, we always have partners. So in this one, as you can see, there are SciAS members. Adeyemi was part of the presenters or the speakers. And it was Karadi, who is an alumni, was one of the speakers. And this was specifically with TIWAS, the World Academy of Science. And it was at the regional level, the Africa. And we're looking at climate change and the adaptation or mitigation of that. And we also have a tool for postgrad. I would like to recommend this tool. The members of SciAS have created this tool, which assists, it's more of a framework when someone is writing a proposal for funding. So this is a tool that you can get online. And please, if you can't get it, please do drop an email to our secretariat, which is Kolani, on how you can access it. It's a very, very useful tool that our members have created, a tool for writing proposal on what to look for. And we also have the SciAS blog. So I had already mentioned that one. And recently, the members wrote a paper called Remodeling Research Agendas. And in this paper, it was accepted in Nature. What we were proposing, what we're advocating for, we're advocating for collective leadership and collaborative leadership. And we're also advocating for cooperation, co-management, and coordination in terms of resources, and especially looking at the research trajectory and aligning that to the Sustainable Development Goals. So that what is still a SIAS project that was accepted by Nature. And another project that we work with DSI, working closely with Ms. Gama and Ms. Mlambo. This was an 18-month project that started when COVID-19 emerged. And what we look here, the working group is called the working group that mobilizes science in times of crisis. And at the end of the whole project, we will be presenting a report that can influence policies. And this is facilitated by DSI, as I've said, in South Africa, and the Secretariat, which is from Europe, Carthage. So what we're looking for there was the preparedness in terms of nations, when COVID emerged, but not only the preparedness, how the non-pharmaceutical interventions, but also when the pharmaceutical intervention in terms of when they were rolled out, what affected, how were people accepting, so that for future, and also international cooperation. So we're looking at different things, but a report will be written and submitted and be made to be a public available. Then the last example that I'm going to talk about is the World Science Forum. The World Science Forum is going to be in South Africa this year, but the SIAS was very involved. It was in 2019 and it was in Budapest. As you can see in the front row, we have Prof. Tolu Oni, who is at UCT now, but she's also she's now the alumni. She was the former ESCO member some years before, but it was a great moment because we're contributing also as SIAS. And here, the picture, when we took it, these are young academies representative from across the globe. It was an exciting time because this is when we also managed to engage with our minister, Tate Ublayden Zimande, and also Professor Reddy was also there. So what was also exciting about this, it was the closing function when now we were given the handover, as in South Africa, you're the one who will be preparing for the World Science Forum in the coming future, which is actually this year in December. The overall aims, after I've given all that presentation and all those practical examples, is to represent young science leaders of the future in South Africa, which is a very valuable resource, especially in terms of influencing policies, in terms of collaboration, because the type of leadership that we need is more of the collective type of leadership, the type of leadership where we are all working towards a shared common vision. So in that, this is a platform that allows that. It also allows in terms of multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary type of collaboration. The membership, the call is out, as I've already mentioned. This is our email. If you like to there's something that you'd like to get from us, you can email Kolani, our social media, our Facebook, our Twitter, and our blog. And this is actually the ESCO for this year, which is Professor Sudesh, Professor Dustin, Professor Kruger, Professor Tash, and myself. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
That was a wonderful overview of SIAS activities, and my goodness, it is really amazing to see, because you obviously have your day jobs, and as young researchers, you are expected to teach, to do research, oversee admin, do academic citizenship, and yet you find the time to contribute, altruistically to the advancements of science among young researchers. That's really, really commendable, not just to you two, but to all of the SIAS alumni that I've had the privilege to have engaged with in the past. Thank you, Tozama. I will reserve my questions for the end, but now let's give our inventor an opportunity to weave his new invention by distilling in us the way in which he can utilize science and technology to address challenges, not just in South Africa, but globally. Over to you, Sudesh.
Thank you very much, Prof. I'm not sure if I can instill anything new, but I will try to. But first of all, it's a great privilege to represent SciES, and on behalf of the EXCO and the larger academy, I would like to thank ASA for giving us this opportunity. And I'm just going to load my presentation. Please let me know if you're able to see my screen.
Perfect. Yes.
Okay. So I've just made a very few slides, and I thought it would be more of a interaction than a presentation. So the role of youth in the advancement of science, technology, and innovation in addressing the challenges in South Africa is the tentative title, but I would like to keep it more focused on scientists, on what we can do or what the system can do to enhance the visibility of STI or adoption of STI in the youth. So let's start with the fundamental question, like, why science, right? So this is like this is, I'm assuming that the audience would be a mixed group, even from the youth. So why science? Science enhances critical thinking, and this is a no-brainer. So we all know that science enhances critical thinking, but science is a tool that makes our lives better. So we definitely need science. Science holds the keys to the future. Science allows us to rationalize our choices, and the key for nation success, growth, and sustainability depends on science. This is like the fundamental assumption that I would want to instill before we go further in this discussion. And what struck me when I was thinking about this particular topic was about the fact that how the choices are influenced by science, how the rationality of decisions get influenced by science, and how one could see the bigger picture with the understanding of science and technology. So with that being said, I'm just trying to connect the next question, which is in front of me. Why youth? I'm a kind of a design thinking person and a systems thinking person. I want to figure out what are the various W's and H's questions. So why youth? So quoting from Benjamin Disraeli, almost everything that is great has been done by youth. So yes, we know that, but how do we get our South African youth to actually make things that are great? How do we bring them to STI to make things that are great? And if I look back, yes, there's been a lot of innovations, a lot of inventions that has been happened in the youth, but not exclusively to the youth, but by many members of the youth. So this kind of raises quite a few questions about why there's a gap in how we are targeting the current generation, the millennials, the Gen Zs or Gen Alphas that as classified. So there is a clear gap between how science has been perceived by the previous generations to how science is currently being perceived by the Gen Zs or Gen Alphas. Gen Alphas may not be at the schools yet, but but the next generations, let's call it that way. So this is a bigger conversation that we should have about methods and how things are being done, even at universities and even at schools and across the various domains. So I happened to have a conversation about this with some of my colleagues in the Global Young Academy some time ago, and we figured out, we were discussing, and in that conversation, something that came out very strongly was that the methods that we are taught as young scientists or young academics are the methods that are done by our supervisor. And those methods that are adopted by the supervisors are something that they have learned from their supervisors. And easily it was at least 40 to 50 years old. And we were trying to figure out what happened between this 40 to 50 years and why that has not been incorporated in our day-to-day science life, and why we are still using some methods, some traditional practices in science that has a that has been that there is no fault of anybody else other than we have been trained in one particular way, and we have not been we have not asked questions to go beyond that routine set of training. And this kind of triggered a lot more questions to understand what's really happening. So I want us to highlight one fact, that the teaching methods that we are currently using started from the first industrial revolution time period. So a typical classroom looks, facing the board, and it's unidirectional. But I just want to pose the question to the audience and to the scientific community out there. Do you think this serves the purpose? But this is science, science, the method that was used during first industrial revolution time period. And I would like us to ask this question about how relevant is this method, or how dependable is this method for the current generation, and how can we change this? So Industry 4.0 has come, and it's just a matter of time. It's going to be replaced by Industry 5.0. We're looking at about connected systems. We're looking at about various factors that are going to be interlaced, which are not just classroom teaching. We don't want to teach just content. Content is already available at the click of the fingers. What is needed is the engagement with science, and how do we create that engagement with science is the most biggest challenge that I foresee with the youth, in order for them to be more productive. So I'm just going to pose a simple question: has our classrooms changed? Yes, we have started using audiovisual tools. We have started using Zoom interactions, but has anything else changed other than this? Other than making it unilateral, that is, the conversations going one from the teacher to the student. Has anything else changed? And this is something that I would like us to probably explore a little further, because I think if we don't change our classrooms, we may not change the interest in science in general. That's my opinion. And how do we change it? There are a few very well studied examples that one could present. You could talk about the design thinking process, where there is collective approach to problem solving. You could talk about systems engineering applications, where the whole problem is broken down into smaller subsystems, and each subsystems are tackled on their own by independent grouping. But my curiosity is around this topic is, how can we enhance this, in addition to making it audiovisually compatible, in addition to making it more interactive? What else can we do it? And I think one of the biggest learnings in the recent times that I've, especially interacting with the youth, that have come, I'm sure all of us have experienced this, is youth consume a lot of data, data in the form that is more audiovisually engaging, especially youth of the current day, do not like to read articles or read papers or read documents. They're absolutely okay with listening to documents. They're absolutely fine with seeing something that will keep them visually engaged. They're okay with audiovisual cues of actually not, even if you look at stats from YouTube, videos that are more than 10 minutes long have lesser views compared to the shorter views. And that's why you see, social medias are reducing their content sizes to less than a minute or less than 30 seconds or so. There is a decrease in the attention span, and this is something that we will see as a significant, may have a significant impact on how we deal with the future generations. And we cannot expect the same typical attention span that we used to have in the past to be applicable for the current generations. So I want to briefly touch on these players here. So these are the top 10 TikTok scientists. they are very popular. These are like listed TikTok scientists. What they do is basically they take the science content and they make it into a bite-sized information that is more engaging in a format that is more accessible by the present-day youth. And these TikTok scientists are very popular amongst the youth. It's so hard to see a peer-reviewed article. I've tried giving a peer-reviewed articles to my students to see if they're able to read it. They prefer to see a video that is made by the same scientist than to read a peer-reviewed article. And I'm just wondering, is this the direction that we should take, in terms of making these youth more engaged with the science, technology, and innovation? This is probably one of the methods. There could be other methods as well. I want to briefly touch on, I saw this meme and I thought probably it might be of interest to the audience. And I think all of us have gone through these stages. It's age 7, I want to be a doctor. Age 12, I want to be an astronaut. And age 16, I want to be an entrepreneur. And in age 20, we end up saying, welcome to my YouTube channel. And this is exactly what is happening in our current day youth. There is a curiosity that is, as they grow older and older, that curiosity is not being tapped into. And I feel that that's the biggest, and I'm not saying that YouTube channel is bad, but I'm just feeling that we need more people to stay with the doctor dreams, with more astronaut dreams, with more entrepreneurial dreams, in addition to having YouTube channel dreams. So my question that I want to put forward to the audience is, what is really happening, and why is that why is that curiosity, what happens, and why is it going down? And youth can design the future that they live in, but I just really want to see and figure a way out in terms of why, how we don't kill the curiosity. It is quite important to understand this in order for us to allow them to be free-minded and to get them more engaged. So, in summary, it is quite critical that we don't kill the curiosity. It is quite critical that we make our scientific innovations and scientific advancements more accessible to Gen Zs and Gen Alphas, and it is necessary, and it is only our I would call myself also older members of science now. It's our responsibility to ensure that we bring the youth here to allow them to tap into their dreams of science, technology, and innovation. But innovation cannot happen without allowing them to explore their curiosities. And that's where our actual engagement with youth should be relevant in a sense where we talk to them about the skills related to observation, the skills related to impact, the skills related to analyzing what's around their own environment, understanding what is their ground level problems, and educating on what could be done at that level, to resolve their problems. For instance, I kind of quote this very often. The biggest, I come from a medical devices or medical technology space. I would consider and kind of reflect on WHO's thoughts around medical devices, which is the biggest medical device, or the most important medical device to a human, or medical technology to a human, is clean water and clean air. It's as simple as that. Do we have access to clean water and clean air? And how can we get our solutions which can make more clean water and clean air? Because that will resolve 70% of infectious diseases problem and respiratory related issues problem. And it's about kind of making sure that we engage and making the youth understand the real problems that they encounter, and equip them with the skill sets, and equip them with the appropriate toolkits. I think once we figure out where the skills gap is, there are so many, plenty of toolkits that are available out there, and many of which are open domain, are in open domain currently. We could make a lot of impact on the lives of youth. So with that, I would like to thank Asa for the opportunity, and I can share specific examples as needed as we go forward. Thank you. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Sudesh, for raising so many important questions in terms of how we communicate science to the youth to get them excited about it. Colleagues, please use the Q&A box if you have any questions to raise. I see a hand, but I will get to those in a minute. Tozama, your research focuses on traditional medicine and traditional knowledge. In a society that is entrenched and acculturated into the Western belief system, how do you take the value of traditional medicine and knowledge to bring into the value system in terms of deliverables to modern society?
Thank you, Prof. Imla. I must first say that it has been very challenging. It's very complex. I think our scientific ecosystem is just complex. But it has been an honor to be among, the people that are in this space and contributing in this space. So when the project started, what also helped me is that Prof. Martha Pinkwana had already a relationship with the traditional health practitioners that are at the VAL. So the relationship between scientists and the community is essential because that's when trust can be built. For traditional medicine, it's something that is not new in the South African context because this knowledge has been entrenched in our society for a long time. But the challenging thing is that when you come up and say this formulation is working for this, you will be challenged in terms of where is the scientific evidence. I mean scientific evidence in terms of documentation. So we work with the executive or traditional health practitioners that are in the VAL. So we work with them. And before we used to also offer courses in simple biomedical procedures. So what happens is they bring formulations. For example, I'm just going to talk about the most recent project with one of our traditional health practitioners when COVID emerged. So they were bringing formulation that is used in the community to manage COVID-19. So when they bring this formulation, is more in the water extract. So what we have to do first is to authenticate, I won't say validate the claims because that will be wrong for me to say, but what I will say, I will authenticate their claims and document these claims. So as it's coming as a water extract, the shelf life for a water extract is very short compared to when you freeze dry and have a powder. So we do all of that. And we had to also apply for funding, but it was not only VUT that was working on this project, it was also CSIR. So in terms of the structure, we work with the executive committee of the THP. So they work with the community and then they work with the university and they bring this formulation. And at first we say they shouldn't disclose anything, but when a project now starts to be interesting, that's when we sign the NDA.
But how do you unpack the intricacies of the jargon science to a community that's not really entrenched in science, but very, very entrenched in cultural practices and belief systems?
Yes, that is so true. It's so entrenched. There's cultural practice of it, but our focus is more on the herbs themselves. We are not more focused on the cultural side of things. So if you're bringing the herb, as a scientist, I'm interested in what is the claim for this herb and how can I then do my chemistry in terms of phytochemical screening to see firstly the secondary metabolites that are in that herb, and how can, if you say it's for the antiviral, it has antiviral activity, how can I work with a lab that has a BL4 type of facility that can screen? So our focus is more on the herb itself.
Okay, thanks. Sudesh, who's your role model and why?
That's a very interesting question, Prof. there are multiple people, there are multiple people throughout my lives that have actually inspired me to take the way forward. We could be very philosophical in talking about the great inventors of our times, but the role models actually triggers at home, where you are subjected to problems, and how creatively your mom solves your problem when you're under-resourced, and how creatively your dad picks up the stuff, and how creatively your mentor, your supervisor guides you, even with this limited amount of time that he has. These are like very, very inspirational figures to look up, and somebody whom you can count on, and you can reflect to, and you can be realistic. And you can always have the upper figures out there, like Thomas Alva Edison, the great inventor, Nikola Tesla, the great inventor. We can always look up to these, Einstein, the great scientist. We can always look up to these great images. But I strongly feel the role models should actually come from our own communities. We need to look up at our own people who have crossed our own journeys, to look up to them and say that these are actually like people who have crossed our own journeys. So when they can do it, I can also do it.
Right.
It's quite difficult to express that because I'm the first doctorate in my entire clan. But to get to the masters, I had few people whom I could look up to. And, basically it's trying to see that, okay, this uncle has done this, this cousin has done this. I can also do it, but I can also take one step further to go on to do into academic research. I think we really need to, think closer. And the closer the role model is, the better it impacts our lives.
Right. No, absolutely. I see there are a couple of questions in the chat box. The first question is, what innovative research can be done in the health sciences field and in the anatomy area? Struggling to do innovation research in these fields.
Fantastic. Can I go to that?
Yes.
So I'm based in a building that is called Anatomy Building. So I should be responding to this question to at least to serve to the justice of where I reside. So there are a number of avenues that we could look into anatomical research as such. There is anatomical research has been very traditional in terms of how we look and observe, and how we feel things, and how we cut open things. And there is a typical method that has been followed, but it's just a matter of time before we will not have access to all our donors of bodies. There's going to be so much complications in future. So there is a lot that we could do in terms of research in that space, where we could infuse 3D modeling, 3D visualization in the whole anatomical teaching and learning process. There is a lot that we could actually infer from 3D modeling and visualization into diagnosis and therapeutics, and that's the linkage. And also, another side of it is population-specific, modeling or population-specific imaging. All our models that we are using in teaching are pretty much Western standard. There is a lot of innovative research that is required to make it specific for African population or our communities, and that will be like incremental innovations, but it will make a lot of difference in learning for students who are going to be dealing with those kind of people when they go to the community. So I think there is definitely a scope for innovative research in that, and there is it cannot come from anatomy alone. It needs to come from other domains, allied fields as well.
Right. Yeah, and that's the way the world is going, right? I mean, if you take genetics, for example, genetics or genomics has now integrated so many other aspects. So you're absolutely right. Your core questions may come from one discipline, but the focus of how you respond to it may be a lot more integrative with other disciplines. Tozama, somebody also asks, how does SciAS define a young scientist? Just unmute.
The question is, how does SciAS define?
How does SciAS define a young scientist?
According to SciAS, firstly you have to have or to be a member. Let me clarify things here.
Right.
To be a member, you should have your PhD. However, we are not limited to work with members. I think as long as you have a passion for science, you can be a young scientist, because, for example, the blog, we invite postgrad students to participate there. The conference itself, we invite, even myself, I was involved in that conference before I graduated for PhD. However, in terms of eligibility, in terms to be a member for SciAS, you should have your PhD and then you apply. I think there's a time frame also, if you can just check in the call in terms of eligibility. But anyone,
and it's also very competitive, right? Because you only take on a limited number of people yearly. And at the time of your application, you have to be under 40 years of age.
Yes.
And once you become a member and you serve your term, you then become an alumni.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, there are a couple of criteria that go into becoming, well, you have to be nominated and voted and elected into membership. So it's not a very straightforward selection type process. It's almost as competitive as it is to become an ASAF member.
Yes.
Sudesh, Dr. Malusi Twala asks, what tools can be used to pull in young minds, because peer-reviewed outputs are still necessary to advance innovation? So what advancements are needed to populate young minds?
That's a great question, Dr. Malusi, and thank you, Prof. Himla, for that. So, in my opinion, I think nothing can replace peer-reviewed outputs. So that's a non-negotiable thing. So that's a standard. It's about taking these peer-reviewed outputs to scientists or to youth, to attract them to science. So how do we do that? Can we make it more bite-sized information? Can we actually combine? Can we make it as a request to researchers to actually come out with 1 minute video of what they would like to, what they have found in this paper as a 1 minute video attachment? And many journals are already doing it. Can we also ask them to do Twitter, Instagram, TikTok posts on these? A few journals have already started doing it. But the question is, we need to instigate the interest in the youth's mind. Once we instigate the interest, the youth will be attracted. And then, coming back to the thing about the peer-reviewed outputs, I think it's one of the methods that we have established, or as scientists have established for a number of years. And there is a need to relook at that model as such, without compromising the essence of peer review, which is getting it validated from scientists across the globe. The opening up of peer-reviewed outcomes and making sure that it is more accessible. I was also, when I was looking for memes, there was another article on, I think it was on Nature, how to make science accessible, which was behind a paywall of $45. So it's the paradox that we are living in. So we need to break the current barriers of peer-reviewed outputs to make sure that, there were a lot of people who were actually looking for information related to COVID, for example, whether this treatment was better or the other treatment was better. People were just Googling the information. Right. Excellent things came out, but none of them were most of them were not in the form that was accessible by public. So it is also the responsibility of us to make sure that we reach them. And then eventually, once we reach them, we will drag them into science.
Yeah. So Sudesh, while I have you on the floor, there are two questions, and I'm going to pose both to you, but they're kind of linked. How do you propose the undersourced are supported to begin thinking in the innovative ways that you have described, particularly where access to education, internet, and skills, etc., are not easily available? And then the second one is, how would you change that kind of interactive teaching? Do you have to start with the level of equipping the teachers to become more computer literate? So if you could just respond quickly to those two.
Thank you, Prof. I think the first question is pretty straightforward. When it comes to under-resourced settings, Of course, yeah, we need to prioritize education and we need to prioritize innovative education. And if we want to get more STI interest of students in STI, we need to invest in STI. That's pretty straightforward. But with the thing that we don't have sufficient investments, I think it's also a responsibility of teachers to be, or teachers or the institutions to be more active in fundraising and actually reaching out to various entities to create clusters of excellencies where one could actually tap into. So we could have like a group of communities benefiting from one science center or one advanced center where they could take turns to get access to it, and essentially that could be done by collaboration of multiple communities. But that is a business model problem. I don't think that's really a teaching and learning problem. And we need to separate business models against teaching and learning. What we are currently doing is we're imposing the problems of non-affordability onto teachers who doesn't have access to or doesn't have literacy on that space. It kind of leads into the next question in terms of computer literacy. Where do we start there from? I think, if we want our students to be educated in computer, mathematics, science, technology, physics, etc., our teachers need to be educated on that. Training of trainers is the most important investment that we can do, and training methods need to be enhanced to make sure that it is in line with the best in the global practice. And we are in a position where we could actually take a leapfrog step in this space, because we could actually infuse the works of the likes of Dr. Tozama, learning from our ancestral methods and infusing that in our current methods and making it relevant for our local communities. And that is where, like, we are always looking up to the West for innovation. I think we need to create that innovation in the space where we kind of infuse best practices that has worked in our communities and kind of enhance that multifolds to address the lack of literacy in their teachers. And it is very important we do top down, because eventually it will trickle down to the learners.
Now, well noted. Tozama, last year you launched your second book entitled 100 Nuggets, Pearls of Wisdom. What was that about?
The book, it's more, even the first chapter, it's more, it has to do with self-actualization. I'm a big fan of becoming my potential, becoming our potential. And the role that, success is not stored for people that are cut from a different cloth. But if we all, invest time, invest effort, we can be what we dream to be. So it has more to do with self-actualization. So it's different nuggets, it's 100 nuggets, pearls of wisdom. So it's different topics ranging from bridging the gap in science to self-leadership, to collective leadership, to what children can teach us. Because one thing that is for sure is that each generation brings something valuable, whether it's at the workplace, whether it's at the community, but it's a matter of merging those two.
You're such an accomplished young scientist. How do you balance everything you do with the role of women in science? What is the secret to your success?
I think, to be honest, science is, I don't want to say it's part of me. I like some of the work, I don't feel like it's a job per se, but it's things that I'm very passionate about. So for example, even with science diplomacy, it's something that I was involved in since I was 14 years old when we went to Vienna in Austria. And we met with Governor Prohl, who was the governor for Austria at that time. So I think it's something that maybe I grew up looking up to my brother. My brother was very good in math and science, so he was my mentor at a very young age. So it grew up in me, I think.
And you said you come from, like a community-based background, and you have climbed the ladder now. What is your message to the different stages of young people, scholars in the school space, people wanting to take academic pathways and to becoming an established researcher like yourself? What is your message to the youth out there?
I think for me, what is very important to young people is to have their own dreams, to follow. There's something we call it, I don't know whether it's an insight or the inner voice. That is very, very important. For me, I discovered that when I was a bit older, but I think it's a way sometimes that God is speaking to you to follow this lane and also see yourself as part of people that will bring up solutions to whatever endeavor that you are choosing to be in. So at the end of the day, it's about picking up your lane and running your own race. So all the best.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just remarkable in this day and age when young scientists are so challenged to be in multiple places at the same time that you have managed to do, what you have done. And you are definitely a role model to the peers and the women and young girls around you. So please continue on this trajectory. We wish you well. And I am told by my program officer, Kutso, that you are speaking soon in one of our upcoming webinars. So I'm really going to be looking forward to that. Sudesh, what was your first invention and at what age did you do that?
That's a very interesting question, Prof, because my first invention was actually not a good one. It actually was a disaster. And I almost burnt my house down. And I still remember the after effect of it from my dad for doing it. But that being said, I was my dad used to work for railways. He was a train driver when I was young, and then he eventually moved up. And I studied somewhere that we could actually make magnets, right? So from my memory, my first, I wouldn't call it an invention. My discovery was that how to make magnets from other sources. Whether you put it under rail tracks, you put it with there is a way that people describe to make magnets, and I tried all of them, and few of them worked. Put it in banana and put it in sugar water. There are things. These are like very stepwise inventions that has happened. But I was so curious in playing with TVs, breaking open the TVs and electronics and all those kind of things. So I always was the last kid which gets the worst of the treatments for mishandling stuff. But I remember like formally going into I felt like this curiosity needs to be formally tapered, and that's when I tried doing something more useful. And I was seeing this person with leprosy actually struggling with holding. I'm not sure if you're aware. In India, we use these. There was steel tumblers, like stainless steel tumblers. So it transmits heat very strongly onto the hands. And leprosy, it's a neurological neuropathy. So it's a condition where you don't actually feel sensation in your fingers. So this leprosy patient was actually drinking a cup of hot coffee or chai, and he was actually burning his own fingers. I was seeing it happen, and that kind of sunk my heart, because I felt like something needs to be done for this. And I designed a glove for these patients, and which actually sensitizes them because they can't feel it. We need to trigger them to say that you're actually overusing a part of your hand to additional pressure or temperature, so that you get alerted, so that you don't end up having pressure sores or temperature burns. And then that was the first one, which eventually got into BBC, and it got a little bit of attention. But more importantly, it served at least few hundreds of leprosy patients. So I would call that my first step.
Oh, the time was not enough, and I'm so disappointed that we've come to the end of the session with me borrowing time in the after 12 session. You two are just remarkable people, and we are so proud of your individual accomplishments and the fact that you find the time to steer SciAS going forward. I have one more chore for you. This year, we are celebrating the International Year for Basic Sciences and Sustainable Development. My colleague Ina Smith is going to engage with you to rope you into the fold of producing a joint SciAS-ASAF initiative to promote this annual event of UNESCO. So we're going to really look forward to you bringing this innovative ideologies using the basic sciences to kind of advance us going forward. And hopefully during the course of this year, the official launch is taking place on the 8th of July, and we have activities planned until June of next year. So hopefully while you still have the positions of co-chairs, that we will be doing some things with you. I've also seen in the chat that my other colleague, Seppo Majaka, who is very involved with Quest magazine, whom I'm sure you know, is also our advocate for advancing science engagement and communication on behalf of the ASAP team. We will also like to rope you into contributing to that strategic document, because I can hear from the excitement that and your own experiences that you could help us shape that in a way that will be pioneering for the young generations to come. And, already as we speak, the COP27 is in motion, and ASAP, together with the Inter-Academy Partnership, is hosting a side event this afternoon from 3 o'clock. So please look at our postings on social media. It's going to be on YouTube because there's very strict control for access there. So please watch it, colleagues, and people listening on this. And I must say, it's really been exciting to listen to you. I want to acknowledge every single one of you for joining in on this session, and in particular, Professor Gledhill, who's our council member and very supportive of initiatives of young scientists. And to all the alumni and other people joining in, thank you very much for supporting us through this. And we look forward to continued engagement. And Sudesh, you better get back here soon, eh? Staying in India for the IPL and saying that you're working from there is not a good excuse. We need you here, and we need to engage. And I wish you both a successful endeavor during your tenure as co-chairs of SciAS. And hopefully we get many opportunities to engage. I really love the passion that you bring to science, and we need to stay focused and engaged. So with that, on behalf of everyone at ASAP and our participants and other SciAS alumni, I wish to thank you sincerely for joining me today. And as I said, I'm very sad that the time has expired. I have a list of questions I would have loved to ask you. But I will ask you maybe to contribute just short snippets for our quarterly review that we will be doing at the end of June for our newsletter, actually. So Henriette, who is helping me steer the ship today, she's the architect for that. But it would be nice for you to just jot down some of the excitements that you've shared with us so that we could put it in our newsletter as well. Thank you very much, colleagues, and to my guests today. Have a good day going forward, and happy celebrations of Youth Day on the 16th and celebrating Youth Month for the month of June. All the best. Take care now. Bye.
Thank you, Prof. See you.